One night, to make sure no one comes looking for him, he stages his own death. He spills pig's blood across the floor, smashes the axe, and then slips away quietly into the dark. The boy running from this scene is Huckleberry Finn, and behind him is a drunken, abusive father who has never hesitated to beat him. Ahead of him on the river lies the greatest journey of his life: a raft, a runaway man seeking his own freedom, and one of America's most beloved and most fiercely debated novels. Even though its narrator can barely spell his own words, the book is often described as the true beginning of a distinctly American literary voice. So, what makes the story of this ragged, barely literate boy still considered a cornerstone of American fiction so many years later? Let me tell you the story. This is the man born Samuel Langhorne Clemens, known to the world by his pen name Mark Twain. Samuel Clemens was born in 1835 in the state of Missouri, in a small town on the banks of the Mississippi River. He lost his father while still young, worked as a printer's apprentice as a teenager, and later spent years as a licensed steamboat pilot on the Mississippi. That profession gave him his famous pen name. Mark Twain was the call a riverboat leadsman shouted out when the water measured 2 fathoms deep, just barely safe for passage. When the Civil War broke out, river traffic came to a stop, so Clemens headed west, turned to journalism, and quickly became known for his humorous writing. In 1876, he published The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, the novel that first introduced Huckleberry Finn as a supporting character. The book was a great success, and Twain decided to return to the same town and the same river for a darker, sharper story. Writing The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn took him years, and out of frustration, he set the manuscript aside more than once for long stretches. The novel was finally published in England in 1884, and in the United States the following year. Twain was not only a novelist, but also one of the most famous stage lecturers of his time, touring America and the world giving humorous talks. The money from these lectures helped support his family and chip away at debts caused by a series of failed investments. His marriage to Olivia Langdon was the most stable period of his life, though he outlived 3 of his 4 children, losses that left a lasting sadness running through even his lighter work. Twain liked to joke that he had arrived with Halley's Comet, which appeared the year of his birth, and would leave with it too. And remarkably, he died in 1910, the very year the comet returned.
Shortly after escaping, Huck runs into Jim, a man enslaved by Miss Watson who has fled in search of his own freedom. And on that same raft, on that same river, the two form an unexpected friendship. Huck and Jim set out on a raft journey down the Mississippi, hoping to help Jim reach free territory. Along the way, they hide out on foggy islands, ride out storms, explore a wrecked steamboat, and are separated and reunited more than once. At one point, Huck becomes caught up with the Grangerfords and the Shepherdsons, 2 proud families locked in a generations-old blood feud, and witnesses firsthand the senseless deaths that feud produces. Soon after, Huck and Jim's path crosses with 2 con artists who introduce themselves as a duke and a king. This pair leaves the raft to travel from town to town, running fake theatrical shows, fake sermons, and fake inheritance schemes on gullible townspeople, and Huck becomes both a witness to their fraud and, more than once, an unwilling accomplice. Eventually, the swindlers go too far and sell Jim off for a small sum as a captured runaway. When Huck decides he must help free Jim, he believes, by the moral logic of his time, that doing so is a sin serious enough to damn him forever. Huck writes a letter that would betray Jim, then tears it up and tells himself he will go to hell instead, one of the most quoted and most morally charged moments in the entire novel. Toward the end of the book, Huck's old friend Tom Sawyer reappears and turns the plan to rescue Jim into an unnecessarily elaborate, game-like adventure, even though he already knows one crucial detail. Miss Watson, before she died, had already freed Jim in her will. Along the way, Huck stumbles onto robbers hiding aboard a wrecked steamboat and repeatedly changes his identity to slip out of danger, at one point disguising himself as a girl to sneak into a town, where he learns that both he and Jim are being hunted. Jim's own beliefs, superstitions, and deep knowledge of the river gradually reshape how Huck sees the world around him. The fake Duke and King eventually drag the pair into an even bigger scheme, posing as the long-lost English brothers of a recently deceased wealthy man in order to steal his inheritance. Huck, uneasy about the fraud, tries to protect the dead man's real daughters, even as the plot around him grows more tangled. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn still endures today because Mark Twain, speaking through the voice of a child, lays bare the moral blindness, racism, and hypocrisy of his era without flinching. The tension between Huck's own conscience and the proper behavior society has taught him turns the novel into something far more than an adventure story. In Ernest Hemingway's famous line, all modern American literature comes from this one book, because Twain was among the first to write in genuine American vernacular speech, without ornament, directly and honestly. The novel also indicts the plain inhumanity of slavery as an institution, largely by showing Jim's intelligence, dignity, and deep humanity, at a time when such a portrayal was itself a quiet act of defiance. That refusal to look away is part of why the book is still read, still argued about, and still considered essential more than a century after it first appeared in print. The novel also questions the very idea of civilization itself. The widow Douglas and Miss Watson, who spend the book trying to tame and instruct Huck, practice a pious respectability that never once questions the institution of slavery surrounding them. The natural, instinctive morality Huck discovers on the river, far from society's rules, remains one of the novel's most enduring ideas. Some critics have found the book's final chapters, once Tom Sawyer returns and takes charge, too playful and contrived for the story's darker stakes. But for most readers, the novel is remembered above all as the story of a boy defending his own conscience against the prejudices of the world around him. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn still endures controversy from its very first years in print. Some libraries pulled it from their shelves almost immediately, judging Huck's rough language and questionable behavior unsuitable for proper children. In the 20th century, the argument shifted. Today, the debate centers on whether the book's racist language, including a slur common in its era, belongs in classrooms at all, a question still very much alive. The first edition also had its own small scandal. During printing, Owoku altered one illustration plate with an obscene addition, and thousands of copies had to be recalled and corrected before wider distribution. Twain himself set the manuscript aside repeatedly for years while writing it. Part of that original handwritten manuscript still survives today, held in an American library, a physical record of just how long and difficult the book's journey to completion really was. The book has since been translated into dozens of languages and adapted for film and television many times over. One curious detail about Twain himself: he wrote his own autobiography under strict instructions that it not be published until a century after his death, and the complete text only appeared in full in 2010.
We've told the story of the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. But Huck's story doesn't really end on the book's last page. He plans to escape everyone trying to civilize him and head out for new territory instead. If you would like to hear the complete novel as an audiobook, you will find the link in the description. You can also find the other book in this series, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, on our channel. Subscribe for more videos in this series. Until the next one, let's remember, like Huck, to listen to our own conscience.